All right. So yeah, everyone's on mute here. So just we'll kind of like get started here. We have a lot of people. We've crossed the 500 person barrier, which is exciting. Where is Brain?
Where's Brain? Pinky in the brain?
Yeah.
Oh.
So I want to kind of like give a little piece of advice. A couple of things. First off, in the chat, if you guys can change your chat to panelists and attendees instead of just panelists, then everyone else can see the questions and like stuff that you're saying. I know a lot of the office hours people are doing that, but just something that you can do for everyone, because then when somebody asks a question and then I answer it and then everyone's like, who's he talking to? It'll make me look less crazy. So it'll make that look a little bit better there. So, all right. Yeah, Sharon, I think the audio is
Shane says, now I want to see how Ryan looks. You can go to my YouTube channel, premed.tv. I don't hide how I look.
Right. How about this? That's what he looks like. His photo is more recent than mine.
There I am.
This is actually more accurate.
There you go.
So let's just do a little bit of an intro here. Ryan, I'll let you kind of like start off.
Yeah, let's rock and roll. So my name is Dr. Ryan Gray, or Ryan as I really like to be called. I am a physician by training. I no longer practice, although with everything going on in the world, I don't know, there might be a chance I'm called up from the minors back up to the big leagues. I started the medical school headquarters back in 2012, been podcasting since 2012. With the Pre-Med Years podcast, if you listen to that, or the MCAT podcast, which I do with Phil, and Next Step Test Prep as well. Lots of podcasts. I've written 3 books, working on my 4th. I'm on faculty here at the University of Colorado School. I don't have COVID-19, I swear. School of Medicine. It's interesting, just random sidebar. I was sick, really sick at the beginning of February, and lots of people are like, "Well, maybe you had COVID." I'm like, probably not. But I haven't stopped coughing since.
You're patient zero.
I was patient zero. I brought it from London. Anyway, everyone's asking, what are your symptoms? So that's who I am. I have a passion now just for helping pre-med students, like just with everything going on. My pre-med years episode today was an interview I did with the Dean of Admissions for NYU, right? I've built lots of good relationships out in the community, out in the world now, and hopefully I can bring that knowledge to you guys.
Yeah, so my name is Phil Hawkins. I'm one of the guys that helped write and edit and put together all the exams and books and materials here at Next Step. I also went to the University of Nebraska Medical Center, where I was an MD PhD student. I was doing my PhD in pharmacology and experimental neuroscience. Do not ask me any pharm questions, because I did not learn much pharm. I was a lot heavier on the neuro side of things. The kind of like learning, memory, Alzheimer's stuff was my realm in that area, which surprisingly has a lot of kind of crossover into MCAT prep, studying a lot of memory stuff. But I also do the office hours and all the public webinars, and I do the podcast with Ryan. So some of the people here were saying like they hadn't seen my face because I just do the podcast. So, all right. So Shay, if you're taking your money back from your undergrad professor, you can give me like a small slice of that, because I'm sure you paid your college a lot. So let's just kind of like get started here. Today's kind of an interesting thing. Actually, Ryan, I'll let you kind of like tackle this a little bit here.
Yeah, so I'm excited tonight. We were a little cryptic with our messaging for good reason, right? It got you excited, got you here, got you interested. We have 3 exciting things to announce for all of you students who are getting ready to prepare for the MCAT, have the MCAT in your sights. So 3 exciting things, not 1, but 3. It's Brian. Somebody said, "Where's Brian?" Phil, I don't even remember the iPhone announcement was like, it's a telephone, it's a communication device, it's a web browser, right? And Steve Jobs was like, it's not 3 things, it's 1. But now we're the opposite. It's not 1, it's 3. So
right.
I'm excited. So a little bit of background first before we jump into all of the exciting announcements about kind of who we are and what we're doing here.
Yeah. So Next Step and Blueprint, it's kind of an interesting like background thing here. We're two different companies. Next Step is all over on the MCAT world. You guys probably know what's going on with Next Step, but we actually merged with Blueprint 2 years ago. And so Blueprint is kind of what we are for the MCAT. Next Step is for the MCAT. Blueprint is for the LSAT world. And so Next Step, this merger kind of like brought a lot of useful things together, because Blueprint is very good at like some analytics, and it's very good at animations and making things pretty funny and like jokes and entertaining, but also really useful like in increasing the rate of learning. And we've been working with Blueprint. Next Step and Blueprint have kind of like merged, and so we've been working on something for the last chunk of time, the last like year and a half at this point. That's so funny. Chanel, you used Blueprint for the LSAT, so you're on both sides of this. So like the first kind of the first big thing that we wanted to kind of like talk about this, right? Announcement number one is that Next Step is now Blueprint MCAT. And so we have a little bit of a name change here. And so we're all pretty excited. This may not seem like the biggest thing for a lot of stuff, but we've got so much stuff working on in the background, and we're really excited to kind of like bring this together and and show what's going on. Yeah, we need an applause button. I need one of those things that like the DJs have, with like fart sounds and all that stuff. I need an applause button on this. So Next Step is now Blueprint, and this is a pretty exciting thing. Yeah, Jail, a little nervous about this. This is really exciting, but this is probably not what you guys are most excited. So this is to announcement number two, and our announcement number two is actually the number one reason why Ryan is here. So Ryan, why don't you kind of like take this a little bit?
Oh, so let's get ready to rumble. So here's where I'm really excited. So if you have listened to me in the past, you have known that when students ask about the MCAT course, right? What MCAT course do I recommend? I have, since Next Step released their course, have always recommended Next Step course. And that's because their course was the best. I've looked at all of them. I talked to students. Next Step was the best. And now they're taking what was the best and they're making it even better with this kind of announcement with the merger with Blueprint and becoming Blueprint MCAT Prep. They're taking a lot of the fun technology and making the MCAT course even better. So I'm excited about that. So the things that are in the course, right? We still have the course, the full-length exams. When students, again, ask me, what full-length exams should I buy? Next Step full-length exams are the number one full-length exams, right? Or actually, I should say number two. And students always look at me funny. What, number two? I don't want to buy the number two. Well, the AAMC number one, right? Obviously, we want number one, AAMC. Next Step, or now Blueprint MCAT, has the second best tests that you can get to really help you prepare for the MCAT. And when it comes to having it in this course, the technology behind it that I've looked at, that I've played with, is really, really awesome. So we have the course. We have 160 integrated modules. There's 130 content learning modules, 30 reasoning modules, quizzes that are integrated all throughout to keep you engaged, make sure you retain what you learn, right? This is not a course where you're just going to go click, 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 and just be super, super kind of bored. It's a lot of integrated, a lot of engaged content, which is awesome. There's the quizzes, again, that I've mentioned throughout all of the thing. Experimental design and statistical reasoning. There's a lot of fancy stuff, and it's way over my head. I hate statistics, but Blueprint, that's what Blueprint is good at. They're good at the experimental design, statistical reasoning, all of that stuff that's really big on the MCATs. They're going to hammer it home for you. And cars is really important, obviously, for the MCAT, right? If you do cars well, the car section obviously is important, but doing cars well, learning cars will help you with every other section as well. It's not just reading more and more and more, but it's actually strategy and reasoning skills, the passages that you'll get, the practice. 40% of reasoning outside of the test, 30% of reasoning within the test, and 30% of reading comprehension. PsychSoc, a much better way, right? If you've listened to the MCAT podcast, Phil is the PsychSoc expert. He gets, what is it, like 20% of your students are getting perfect scores on PsychSoc. So he's taken a lot of his knowledge, a lot of the technology, a lot of the brain power behind Next Step and Blueprint, or now Blueprint MCAT, and really bringing home the PsychSoc section with 700 to 800 concepts that are being tested, and not just a document full of things that you have to memorize, but actual passages to hammer home everything that you need to know. The QBank, it was 2,000 questions, but wait, there's more. Now it's 4,000 plus questions, right? More is better. We know in the test prep world that more questions and doing more questions, not having access to more questions, but doing more questions is actually what helps you with your score. So now you have 4,000 plus questions in their QBank with advanced filtering options as well. So, and we can talk about that maybe a little bit later, but as you go through your full-length exams and you're reviewing them and you see where your weaknesses are, now you can go to the QBank, filter out for those weaknesses and improve them as well. And then new books, revised books with online quizzes, additional realistic practice. So really everything from the bottom up, right? This isn't just a new paint job on this course, which is why I'm really excited to have students dive into it, why I was excited when I was diving into it, I was really excited when I was getting exposed to it from the Blueprint MCAT team. So yeah, I'm super stoked, and I have no desire to take the MCAT again. So sorry about that, Phil.
Yeah, no, the same thing happened to me. I'm like, after I finished the exam, I'm like, I'll never have to think about this ever again. And now it's my career. So I want to kind of talk a little bit about what's going on with the Blueprint side of things, what they've kind of like brought into this. So one of the big things that we've kind of added into this is this customizable study planner. And we already have a study planner, but now it's a little bit easier to manage. And perhaps most importantly, it's on your mobile phone now. And that makes things a lot easier to kind of like, like deal with the mobile side of things. Now you can, adjust your schedule on the go. Not that people are on the go that often these days. Not a lot of people probably riding the bus, to a concert or something. But there is also the ability to kind of like save time by testing out of these like modules. And so you can find yourself kind of like getting out of, if you're a whiz at magnetism, maybe you can kind of like get out of, like having to like spend the time studying magnetism because you're already a master of this, at that point. We also have highly engaging videos. And this is something that like going back in time, like 5 years ago, if you guys could have like seen me in my office in there, like me and Brian and Clara and Andrew and all of us, creating images, and all of us have really great science backgrounds, but we're like using Microsoft Paint to kind of like put stuff together. And so this is one of the great things about combining with Blueprint is they have videographers and they have animators and illustrators. And so we're able to create like all new images and videos and animations, kind of like showing what's going on with all of these like really complex technical topics. We also have some insane analytics. We spent literally months just like identifying questions and breaking questions down, not just into topics, but also into what's going on with like the types of questions and the difficulty and the reasoning you have to do kind of behind this. I know some of you guys are kind of like talking. Yeah, I've been really into stats, Sarah, recently. So remember, there's a third announcement at the end of this. We're kind of like in the second announcement going through here. So we have these analytics, right, going through here. We also have you're going to be able to create your own Q banks. So the analytics might tell you that like, hey, I need to work on electrostatics. I also need to work on endocrinology, and I also need to work on psychological disorders. And now you can create quizzes built around that. And so your quiz is just those topics. Do you want to have them as passages? Then like set up your Q banks to be like heavy on passages. If it's discrete, then you can set it up that it's just gonna be discretes. And so you can use this like high level analytics to try to figure out what's going on with, you know, your weak areas. And then you can create Q banks to kind of like build around this and work on that. So we also have a lot of video player upgrades. No more buffering. This stuff is going to be building up based on your internet speeds. And so the faster your internet is, like, you know, we'll be able to adjust and buffer. It's exactly Netflix does it, only instead it's maybe a little bit more educational than Peaky Blinders, which we were talking about earlier. So that's kind of like a big thing that we have kind of like going on with this. But there are some other kind of like we still are going to be doing like office hours, like 5 office hours a week. I do 8 of them, 8 hours of office hours. We also have 2 hours of office hours done by Azai, who's doing office hours right now. She is currently a student at Harvard Medical School, and so she does 20% of the office hours. I do the other 80%. And so these are all like super exciting things. And we're going to go into a lot of this stuff in a little bit more detail, but I want to kind of talk a little bit like in terms of like the philosophy behind this, to start to kind of like understand like what's going on kind of behind the surface, and how studying for the MCAT is different than studying for any other exam. It's different than studying for the LSAT or the GRE or the PCAT, the ACT, the SAT. It's different than studying for your orgo or physics finals in undergrad. So the MCAT is asking a lot of like really specific things. So like they want to know that you can apply knowledge, not just regurgitate it. In undergrad biochem, I feel the job in that class was to memorize all of these enzymes and be able to just like vomit them out metaphorically onto a piece of paper and just like draw out all of these things. Versus the MCAT is going to ask you something that's a lot more application based, right? Like how is an inhibitor of the antagonist of an insulin receptor going to affect beta oxidation of fatty acids? And so it's going to be a lot more kind of like application and applying knowledge than it is just memorizing and regurgitation. There's also a lot of connections between topics. So like, how is it that while we're studying electrochemistry, as we're trying to understand galvanic and voltaic and electrolytic cells, how can we take that information and apply it to the different complexes of the electron transport chain, right? So like, this is like bio and biochemistry and ubiquinone versus ubiquinol. That's actually a little bit of like organic chemistry, but it's also electrochemistry, and it's also just general biology. And so being able to apply all of those things and start to make the connections. Honestly, this is why I love my job talking about the MCAT stuff, is because if I was a physics professor, I could just talk about physics. But now I can talk about how physics and magnetism is how a mass spectrometer works. And how, like, if we use a protein going through here, a mass spec, we can understand that a little bit better. So we're also going to be integrating new information, like how you can take information from a passage and kind of apply that. And that's something the MCAT really cares about, the ability to integrate new information into the stuff that you already know. The MCAT is very often throwing curveballs at you in passages. The AAMC has shown like passages in the past about like matrix-assisted laser desorption ionization or circular dichroism chromatography. They know you've never seen this before, but they're just trying to see, can you take this information and integrate it into stuff that you already know? So there's also these like different perspectives, and this is the absolute like point of CARS. Like the whole point of CARS is not to see if you can read, right? Like if you've gotten to this point, you're applying to med school, the AAMC knows you know how to read, right? Like that's not what they're trying to check with the CARS section. They're trying to see, do you understand what's going on in these other people's heads? What's going on in these other people's perspectives, right? Which is a crucial skill for a physician. You need to understand what's going on in the head of your patients, and because that's going to affect like how well they're going to, stick to the medications that you've given them, or how well, just like frame of mind, like has a big effect on outcomes of surgeries and things like that. So, like the reasoning about experiments and how like you can like why an experiment is being done this way and how you can do experiments through here, and all of the stuff are things that the MCAT is asking about that is not like, this isn't stuff that you're used to in undergrad, right? This isn't stuff that happens in other exams, right? Everything else is very different than all of this. And the MCAT, just on top of that, is scope, right? And so we take all of this, right? Like these things that the MCAT is asking, and we use this to build this course, right? So our course has these focus on trying to get people to think like an MCAT writer, because once you can start to understand what they care about, it's a lot easier to answer their questions, right? Imagine that you're at a job interview and they ask you like something shady's going down, but your boss tells you to do it. What do you do? There's an answer to that, like, if forgetting morals for a second, right? Like there's a correct, if you really need this job, there's a correct answer to that. Like, are they trying to test, are you a moral person? Are they trying to test, are you going to let, like, this business is kind of shady, they just want to make sure you're on board? Are they trying to test if you'll stand up for yourself? Are they trying to test, like, will you follow orders, right? Depending on what they're trying to test with that question, your answer would be different if you're trying to, like, get the job. And this is why it's really important to understand what it is that the MCAT writers actually care about, because you can start to understand, like, why they're asking questions this way. And so we spend a lot of time kind of trying to focus on, like, why is it that the MCAT is asking questions in these, like, really specific ways. So we teach also a lot of science. Obviously, it's not just like critical thinking and like reasoning like an MCAT writer, but this science is in this like interconnected way through a lot of things that I just talked about a moment ago, right? Like electrochemistry and metabolism, right? Like neurons and capacitors, like those actually have a lot more in common than a lot of students would think at first. So we also have a lot of strategy and reasoning in this. We also have a lot of this experimental design, which I think, to be honest, is the level of experimental design tested on the MCAT. It's a little bit unfair, right? There are things and like techniques like knockdowns and pull downs and ELISAs that the AAMC will test you on, but there's a good chance you never saw this, right? Like when I got my bio degree, like I didn't know what a pull down was, but to be a good doctor, to be a good physician, you have to interpret data. I guarantee you, every doctor out there is reading up on what's going on with COVID right now. They need to be able to interpret data, as it makes sense of it. And this is a big deal. And so you also don't really have time to do that in medical school. I know a lot of you guys are like, well, why don't they teach us to interpret data in medical school? I promise you, once you're in medical school, you'll change your tune on that. You're like, there's more than enough stuff going on there. So this experimental design and statistical reasoning, all of these are really important things that you need to kind of incorporate into the exams kind of overall. And we also treat psych-soc as more than a vocab. It's all about application. And, Ryan talked a little bit about that, about how like 20% of my students, like my tutoring students, have gotten perfect scores in psych. And there's certain ways to kind of think about this application, being able to explain with your own stories and examples. And that's way more important than being able to just give the definition. I promise you that MCAT will never ask you for the definition of anything, right? It's not the SAT, right? It's going to ask you to apply things kind of overall. Melissa. So, and this all kind of comes from, like, honestly, I spend like thousands of hours every year talking to MCAT students, and you start to hear like different like pain points that like students kind of come into. And it's kind of like this, like you start to get a good grasp of it after you spend like literally thousands of hours working on this. And a lot of this is like, how do you interpret data, right? How do you interpret your full-length scores? Like track the patterns of what you got right and what you got wrong, and how can you use that to be better? There's also, how do you deal with the MCAT math? I know a lot of students like flip out a little bit because you don't get a calculator. You have to do things like fluid dynamics and electrostatics and magnetism and circuits, right? Like, how are you supposed to do that without a calculator? There's also, like, how do you stay motivated? That's a big challenge, right? That's a real a real problem. You guys are like, if you have an orgo exam, you study for that for like a week, right? Maybe 2 weeks if your finals come in. I'm going to study hard for 2 weeks. With the MCAT, you're studying for months, right? Like it's very weird. I remember when I was talking to my best friend in undergrad, and I'm like, he's like, you want to hang out this weekend? And I'm like, nope, sorry, I have an exam in 2 months, right? That's not a normal thing, right? Over the course of like what's going on in undergrad. And so you have to learn to stay motivated, treat it like more as an endurance race, right? More as a marathon than a sprint. And so how do you like stay organized on top of that? Because there's so much information, and how do you prevent burnout? All of these are like real issues that people need to kind of like deal with. And they're kind of specific to the MCAT, right? And so it's really nice to have people who understand what's going on with this. So we have kind of like all of this philosophy stuff, and most MCAT companies, most prep courses, they think of this kind of an afterthought, right? And so we've done kind of a lot of things through here, like focusing on what exactly students need. Like, to be honest, I love teaching, and that's why I left medical school, is because I wanted to teach and go through this. And this is like, we're all very passionate about this and trying to make the most of it. So one of the things that we kind of like hinted at a little bit was this study planner tool, and the ability to like look at things on your phone and kind of adjust stuff, and you can like drag and drop, and it's built around your schedule. Like, when are you starting prep? Are you starting tomorrow? When's your exam, right? Let's say your exam is June 4th, right? You can build your own schedule around your life, right? If you have to work every other Wednesday, and you have all day classes every Thursday, so I can't do anything on those days. And then this weekend, my cousin is getting married, and so I'm going out of town for that. Like, you can build your schedule around your life, because you guys are not all the same, right? Some of you guys have jobs, have classes, have real world stuff kind of going on, things with like families and like obligations and courses and volunteering and shadowing, and like all of those are a big part of prepping for the MCAT. And so you have to kind of like build a schedule around that. And so our schedule does that, and it builds it around what you need. So this is like one of the big things that I think is just really important generally. I used to work for a different test prep company. It was very frustrating that we just kind of treated every student the same. It didn't matter if that student was a bio PhD and that student was a psychology major. We treat them all the same. And like, this is why like you need to kind of like understand what makes students different and how to adjust and deal with this. So like, this is a big thing. And so we have this whole like study planner stuff going through here. And ooh, Ryan, I'm sorry. I think you were supposed to talk about that. I got super excited.
You were on a roll. I didn't want to interrupt your jam.
No, this is my office hour stuff coming out. Like, I just spend hours every day just like talking in general, and so I sometimes forget that like, oh, other people are allowed to talk also.
No, I think you hit most of the key points about the study planner. Obviously, from my point of view, not doing MCAT prep all the time, students still come to me all the time saying, like, I need to study for the MCAT. How do I start? Where do I make a plan? And obviously, having this built into the course is awesome. Where I was playing with it earlier, putting in when I'm going to start studying and when I'm going to take the MCAT and how many hours I have. And obviously life gets in the way, and we see that right now with everything going on with the MCAT being canceled until April 16th. Having that flexible planner where I can jump on my phone or jump on my laptop and change those things to a new date, and being quarantined at home, and now all of my classes are online, and the time that I have to study is changed now. I can now go in and adjust those things and have the study planner tool really tell me what I need to do and hold my hands. And so that's really awesome. And I think that alone is just a huge benefit for students who otherwise are just trying to scribble things out on paper, trying to figure it all out.
Yeah, not to mention the fact that, a lot of people are kind of trapped at home, and their life has kind of like been shook up a little bit. And I think that one of the things, so like I actually went through a rough transition when I switched to like working from home, because it was hard to kind of like set like a schedule and kind of like work through things going through there. And so like having a schedule is also really important because it just allows you to kind of like, okay, these are the things I need to do today. And you kind of like build your schedule around that. But it is flexible. If you don't get to something, you can move it to another day. Or if you've got more time today, I'm going to take some of my stuff from tomorrow and pile it on today. Or let's say I'm sick of physics. I'm moving my physics stuff to tomorrow and I'm taking my biochem stuff to today. And I'm like adjusting this going through there. So yeah, so we also have these like learning modules, which is really exciting.
Let me pause real quick.
Yeah.
Just kind of another COVID update. Guys, if you want to hang around to the end, I'd be happy to talk about COVID stuff. I know the AAMC and AMCAS released some information today that scared probably a lot of you, and I can give you a little bit more context behind that if you stay to the end.
Yeah, we'll definitely stick around for a while afterwards. So we also have these like learning modules, which are different than just lectures, right? They're like, they're content and strategy and quizzes kind of like going back and forth through here. And this ability to test out of stuff to make sure that if you have like if you're really good at something, like maybe I don't need to spend time doing it. That was another thing that I struggled with when I worked with a different test prep companies, because I was like lecturing to a group of students and like 5 of these students need to hear this, but those 5 students don't need to hear it. And so like, why am I like, I don't want to waste their time, but like these students need to hear it. And so this allows students to kind of like build their schedule and their content around what is their weak areas and like spend more time, but you can kind of like jump over some of your strong areas. So this is also, once again, 100% mobile friendly. So when the world does open up again and you are on a bus going to a concert, you can actually watch some of your videos as you are like, as you're traveling. And so now all of a sudden this becomes more mobile as well. And so maybe as you're like walking on a treadmill, you know, getting that exercise, maybe you're still trapped inside, you can watch like what's going on with the course, and you can like do this from your phone. So, and this is like the big thing of just this whole adaptability stuff. I also talked a little bit about how this is better than just me making things in my my Microsoft Paint diagram. So it's no more boring stuff. There's like videos and we have animators. And this is why it took us 2 years. We've been working on this for 2 years with like animators and videographers, making sure that this is as pretty and clear. There are some things that like are just so much clearer when you see an image or a video, like something that you watch it once and you're like, oh, that makes sense. But if you read it in a book, you have to read it and reread it and reread it like over and over and over. And that tends to make things kind of like drag on a little bit. And like, it's hard to understand. And sometimes a video or an image makes things so much clearer. So, and I have to be honest, these are actually kind of entertaining, right? Like they're funny. There's like jokes and there's things in here that are a lot more interesting. And so like, even though I obviously am pretty comfortable with the content, I still watch some of these things, right? And I'll just like watch a video as I'm eating my oatmeal in the morning, just because I'm like, oh, that was funny. Sophia, that was like a joke from her. And so
you're a nerd, Phil.
I never argued otherwise, right? Definitely a nerd. And this is like, takes us to like analytics, which is the last thing, and we're one of the last things here. This is a big deal. So back when I prepped for my MCAT back in 1992, because it was like forever ago, it definitely feels that way. I remember I was working on cars, and for 2 months, cars was just flat, right? Like I'd studied physics, and you're better at physics, but like, how do you get better at cars, right? There's nothing to study. And so for 2 months, it was just flat, right? And I was like really, really kind of like struggling going through there. And then like 2 months into this, one day I went down and like, okay, yeah, it wasn't in the 1900s. don't quote me on that. Also, Dickety 2 is not a year, so you can't hold me to that. So what I did after 2 months, I sat down and I went through multiple exams, like tallying up like what were the questions I missed and what was similar between them and the wrong answers I chose, and like what was the pattern, like what kind of question was it doing this. after months of no progress. And after spending like 4 or 5 hours, I recognized like, oh, these are the sorts of questions I struggle with. And literally the next day, anytime I was torn on a question, I'm like, or before I go into the question, I'm like, all right, Phil, this is the sort of question you struggle with. Don't do this thing that you always do. And my score went up 5 points in 24 hours and then kept going up after that. But this after 2 months of just pain and suffering, and where I would like do an exam and or do a passage and I'd do the questions I'm like, oh, okay, well, I guess C makes sense. Why, I don't know why I didn't pick C and B. I shouldn't have picked B. C is the right answer. And this is the analytics here are going to save you from that pain. You're not going to wait 2 months before you figure this out. And once you do try to figure it out, you're not going to have to put in hours of work to like keep track of what are the kinds of questions that you're doing. This is all being done for you. And this is why we spent like I said, months going through like tagging questions. Each question is being tagged in lots of different ways. So like the subject and like the AAMC reasoning type, like how you have to think about this in order to answer it, the question, like what the question is about, what the difficulty level is. So it also shows that if you switch your answers from the wrong answer to the right answer or the right answer to the wrong answer, so you can start to get an idea of is your like second guessing, does that help you or does that hurt you, right? Like, because a lot of times students will like go back and like second guess and they'll end up kind of like doing way better versus they'll second guess and like, oh, like I need to quit second guessing because I'm always right on the first time. And so the whole point of this is to make sure that you are maximizing the return on the time that you're putting in. So you can put in less time and less effort and still get more stuff out of this. I am a little bit of a data junkie. I love this side of things because this is actually what really helped me. And like after months of prep is the analytics. Like that's actually what made a difference for me kind of overall. So we also, we want to talk about like some stuff is not changing. I want to be clear, like we're still going to have our 10 full-length exams. We're still including all of the AAMC materials, the 5 AAMC full-length exams, the 4 scored ones on the AAMC sample test, the section banks, the Q packs, like everything from the AAMC. We're still doing 10 hours minimum a week of office hours. This last week we did 12 because we wanted to talk about COVID stuff. And I think we spent the office hour talking about viruses after we kind of like talked about what was going on with other stuff. We've also upgraded a lot of things, our Q banks, and those have been updated as well, right? We like doubled the amount of questions and all of them have been tagged to help you like figure out what your weak areas are. The books are included and now updated, and we still have our score increase guarantee where we guarantee that your score is going to increase going through our course. And so a lot of this stuff is kind of like not changing in here. So we've talked about this course kind of overall, and I think it's really important to understand how this course is going to help different people. Like if you're a traditional med student, a retaker, or a non-traditional. And so I'm going to let you talk about that a little bit, Ryan. I'm gonna actually like take a breath and drink some coffee for a second.
Take a little breath. Yeah. So the next few slides really are just to show each of you wherever you are. I know a large percentage of my audience are non-traditional students, but this is really for everyone. So if you're a traditional student going through school, junior, senior, wherever you are, this new course, right, from the ground up is for you. It can adapt to your kind of college life where you're at. Try to build it in with the courses that you're going through and really get through the day, right? The videos are awesome. Again, it's not your typical science class. You're not sitting in the class or now in your bedroom watching on Zoom, but you have these highly engaged videos. These videos were awesome. As Phil said, I wouldn't go so far as to say I like eating my breakfast to them, but they're some of the best videos that I've seen in teaching this information. So awesome stuff. Really, and the cars and psych sections for a lot of students are hard. You are in school studying sciences, and the cars and psych sections are hard. And so the course has you covered there as well. And it's not just memorizing for psych-so, it's just not just memorizing all of the stuff that you need to memorize, but really going through the passages and trying to learn and understand, which is where I think this course soars. So if you're a non-trad or a retaker rather, right, you may have taken a course. A lot of retakers haven't taken a course and they're like, oh, I can do it, right? I have a 4.0, I'm a good student. But the nice thing about how they have the modules set up that you can test out of them. So as you're going through this for a second time or third time, maybe, hopefully not more, but some of you maybe, you can test out, make sure that you know the information that you have, test out of the modules that you can test out of, study the modules that you need to really improve your score. And really, as Phil was talking earlier, the analytics dashboard is where I really saw the value of this course. Was if I know from data, right, and we're hearing all about data right now in the news, if I know from data that I almost always change from the right answer to the wrong answer, I need to force myself to just not change my answer. And so these rich analytics are just going to really help you figure out if you do know the material, but you're messing yourself up, just second guessing yourself. The course is going to help you figure out what's holding you back. So that's where I really enjoy it. And then for my fellow non-trads out there, the course is really there. The study schedule that we talked about, right? As a non-trad, if you have a family, if you have a job, if you have multiple jobs, trying to juggle all of that stuff, the study planner being able to rearrange all of that as needed, right? You're busy, we get it. So having that study schedule there, having the modules to go through as you need, you can do that. Again, the videos are awesome. Whether you're a non-trad or a traditional student, the videos are awesome. They're going to keep you engaged. Hey, maybe they're so engaging, Phil, that the non-trad who's a parent, the kids are going to watch too, right? It's going to be the new YouTube. We'll get the kids on board.
Yeah, we're going to get them started early. They'll pass their MCAT in 5th grade.
Yes, I love it. And then again, the cars and psych-so section, which is always really hard for me to say. Again, I can't hammer that home enough. It's not just going out and reading a document full of phrases. You're actually being taught the material behind everything as well. And then everything, right? The biggest thing that I think makes this course stand out, right? This has been built up from the bottom up again. The thing that I love about this course is the office hours, where you get to actually go and talk to Phil and talk to whoever's running office hours 5 days a week for multiple hours, really just figuring out how to improve your score, where your hangups are, how to improve. So that extra guidance is really key.
Yeah, so we've gotten through our second announcement here. It's time for the third one. And a lot of you guys have been wondering about price, and we'll add this in. That's not the third announcement. But so the price for this course is, so our current course is $16.99. Our new course is $100 more. So it's $17.99. So like, I know a lot of students are kind of worried about price overall. And so we've like updated all of this. We've increased, we've invested hours and hours of like all of these things because we want, like, the price should not be what stops students from getting access, right? The price isn't what should stop someone from being a medical student. So this leads to the third announcement, right? So the third announcement is the early adopter program we're doing. And so this is open to just 100 people. But this is stuff that you guys can get in on. So we have up to $778 off. So this is up to, like, you get $528 off. Some people can probably guess where that number came from. So you get $528 off instantly, just immediately. Plus you get a chance by, like, giving us some feedback and just like telling us a little bit like what you thought about the course and kind of like what your score was when you actually took the MCAT. You can get you can get $250 off of that as well afterwards. So We have that, and that's a big thing. There's also going to be a private Facebook group, which you're going to be able to interact with a lot of the people kind of behind the scenes, the experts, the tutors, the instructors, our med school admissions experts. I'm going to be in there. That's kind of like my job over the next couple of months, is like a little extra bonus for Phil, is to be in here and kind of like interact and make sure you guys have everything you need through this. We also are going to have, on top of this, these like virtual events and webinars that are just for these early adopters. And so you can sign up for this at theblueprintprep.com/MCAT. And if you score in the 99th percentile, you'll get a full refund on the course. And so like everything, it's gonna be completely free. Going through that, which is awesome, right? Like, although like I think it's, if you score in the 99th percentile, you're already having an awesome time, and so you'll have extra awesome on top of that. You can take yourself out to a steak dinner, surf and turf. So I do want to drive home though that there are only 100 spots in this. And so what's happening is we're going to, like, you can go to this and kind of like sign up here. You'll get on the list, and then the people on the list will get emailed the new course. So when the course launches, you can purchase the course with a special discount code that's going to be sent to you, and that'll give you the $528 off of the course. And so that's kind of a big thing. And it's just the first 100 people to buy who get in. So we'll email you a confirmation, and then you'll get immediate access to the Facebook group, so you can kind of like start prepping. And so where's the link? Yeah, that's the bottom left in the gold. So blueprintprep.com/MCAT. So a couple of other things that I want to talk about before we kind of like move into the Q&A. And so that is, so anyone who preps with the course gets 99th percentile. Just share your success story with us and you'll get a full refund. The current next step students, and I've seen like people asking about that there, a lot of my friends from office hours, if you are currently in a course and you want to kind of like upgrade, you can talk to your MCAT advisor. You can go to the next step homepage, and you should get like a little chat thing that pops up, or you can email. And you can kind of like maybe get some new info about, trying to upgrade to the course. If you want to start like prepping, like if you guys don't have any background, so this course is going to start to drop in April. And so we have a little bit of time between now and then. And so if you guys like don't have a course right now, and you guys probably have some free time, right? Like just guessing, you guys are trapped at home. You're a little bit, you're going crazy with people kind of pestering you. You can't go hang out with your friends. So maybe you're looking for something to occupy your time. So you can, if you want to start prepping now with our old course, and then when the new course drops in April, we can upgrade you on that. We can do that as well. So you can go ahead and like give us a and as well. So Ryan, I think you're also doing some stuff with these courses as well.
I'm hanging out in the Facebook group, answering questions about whatever students have.
Yeah. So I think you're going to be doing some giveaways also, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're going to have some social media, some fun stuff on social media going on. So if you don't follow me on Instagram, Medical School HQ, my Facebook group is the Pre-Med Hangout. Go check out there. We'll also probably do the giveaway on through my email list as well if you're not on social media, but we'll figure out a way to get everyone involved. So stay tuned for those fun announcements.
Yeah. All right. So does anybody have any questions? I'm betting
questions. Let's go.
Yeah, there's a lot of questions, like rapid fire. So like Ryan, like you kind of like hinted at that you had some questions about what kind of like COVID overall.
Yeah. So let me just give a brief kind of conversation about kind of the MCAT world right now and what I've heard from my podcast episode that came out today, the premedyears.com/383, if someone wants to drop a link, was with the Dean of Admissions of NYU, right? Everyone I think knows NYU. Dr. Rivera's a good friend of mine, as we've built up a relationship over the last few years. And I reached out to him. I said, look, students are scared. They're freaked out. They want to know what's going on. And so I had a good conversation with him last night, and that aired today. And really at the end of the day, the answer to all of your questions is we don't know, right? And that sucks to really think about that. But we don't know when the world is going to open up again, right? If we listen to our president, he wants everything open by Easter. I think that's very aggressive.
Yeah.
But as of right now, from last I heard, Pearson has everything canceled through April 16th. I know some of you posted that your specific city or state or wherever you are is locked down for a shelter in place or stay at home orders, or however, whatever you want to say, for even longer than that. In those cases, you're obviously not going to be able to test if you have a test that may have a date. And this is where things are getting a little crazy, is we have different parts of the country that are shut down. And so Pearson may be open in one state and not another. And so does the AAMC still do tests on that date? We don't know, right? We don't know. It's still way too early. We don't know, right? If I want to put on my doctor hat, I was the former public health emergency officer in the Air Force. I planned and prepared for these types of emergencies. I think we should have a national shelter in place right now. But I'm not the president, and I can't make that call.
Is this when you announce you're running?
No. Voteforgray.com.
I'll be your VP if you want. It's not going to get you a lot of votes, but
yeah. It's for another podcast. So right now the AAMC really just they've added some Friday dates to their schedule as far as I can see right now, but again, everything is still up in the air. So plan on at least probably mid-May before we can start taking tests. If you have a late April or early May test, I would probably tell you to reschedule it just to get ahead of the curve. And then you're going to be mad at me when they actually have the test. But I'm just telling you, right? That's what I would do if I were you. Then you ask, well, what about applying early? And that's going to delay my application, and everything's going to be messed up. And again, go listen to my episode with Dr. Rivera. He talked about how NYU has kind of this algorithmic way to screen applications. And so really the applying early isn't as important for NYU. Every school is going to be different. So AMCAS, let me just randomly throw in an AMCAS. AMCAS sent out an email and updated their website that basically said nothing has changed. And that made a lot of students mad. And that made me mad until I really thought about it for 2 seconds. I said, well, AMCAS is really just the portal to the schools. It's the schools that are going to tell you what their deadlines are. Do they have rolling admissions? Are they canceling rolling admissions for this cycle? What are they doing for the cycle? The schools determine all of that. AMCAS just goes by what the schools do. So don't worry about AMCAS saying nothing has changed. They may have, AMCAS may have a normal opening date of May to start filling out, early June to submit. A lot of the schools may not start looking at applications until August or September, pushed back. Again, we don't know because the schools haven't really told us. Harvard updated their page I saw today saying, hey, we know from a pass-fail perspective, if you were forced to do pass-fail, that's fine. We're not going to hold it against you. Online classes, we're not going to hold it against you. I would expect every medical school out there is going to be fine with pass-fail and online classes for this semester quarter. That's just the way it is. As far as schedule, again, timing wise, we just don't know. Schools are still trying to figure that out. So with that said, what other questions do you guys have?
Yeah. So Evangelina, yeah, it was 1,800. I actually do want to kind of like take a second and add on to this, is that it's really easy when your exam gets canceled to be like, this is so awful, right? Like they're really, like my life is so much harder. But this is not just affecting like the MCAT takers. This is affecting Pearson and the AAMC. This is affecting the med schools as well. And so like a lot of times, like you can like look up something and like, you know, NYU or UNMC or Johns Hopkins or Mayo, they all said this thing that they would never do this. Well, this is kind of a weird scenario. And so you kind of have to understand that things are going to be a little bit different, and maybe admissions are going to open the same time. Maybe applications are going to open at the same time. But if a lot of students have their exams pushed back, like all of a sudden, like it's one thing if you apply really late and everyone else applied early, right? And like that kind of messes with what if we all die? Well, then we don't have to worry about the MCAT, right? Silver lining. So the like that idea that like there's a lot of people that are going to be pushed back, and so I think like having a little bit later of an application is not going to be as like end of the world as it kind of gets painted in a lot of cases. I mean, I know students who have taken an exam in in August and gotten into medical school. I think that we'll probably see like more of that. I don't think that's the ideal scenario. It's probably easier if you apply earlier, but this is going to be a weird year. In a lot of ways, the AAMC and the MCAT applications being probably the least of it. It's just going to be a weird year kind of all over.
Yeah.
Ryan, do you know anything about the Texas school application stuff?
I have a call with Enrique on Monday to talk about the only thing. He actually just sent me a message that one school has announced, and it was kind of just as kind of plain as the AMCAS message. This one message was for Texas Tech, I believe. Let me see. We have our first response here. I'm looking. Let me put the link in the chat here so that everybody can see. All panelists and attendees. So that's the Texas Medical and Dental School Application Service kind of update page that you can continue to check out. Texas Tech has updated as of yesterday, and then Long School of Medicine has updated as well. And it looks like Long, potentially, just glancing at it, is doing what I recommend and kind of not doing rolling admissions and kind of spacing things out a little bit better than normally, just to give students a chance, which is great. So check out that page. Yeah. What other questions?
Yeah, so it will be the first. So everyone has an opportunity to be in the 100. So we're going to like aggregate a list, and then we're going to send out an email with a discount code, and the first 100 people to buy it with that discount code, their discount code will work. After that 100, it's not going to work. So we have it flagged. So anybody who uses that discount code is going to be automatically included in the early adopter program, and you'll get access to the Facebook group and all of the other stuff kind of like going through there. It's a good question. What if you like convert from the old one? I'm assuming it's going to be the same. Maybe Phoebe or Carolina, who are in here in the background, can cast a little bit of light on that. But I'm assuming it would be treated the same through there. Honestly, it would be good feedback to have somebody who like saw some of the old course and some of the new and getting an idea of kind of like the feedback through there. Yeah. Oh, Marifel, if you're just interested about the new platform, you can also talk to your MCAT advisor, your admissions manager. They can help you out with that as well.
A couple questions about specific schools and COVID. So Florida schools, University of Colorado, where I'm on faculty. And again, I haven't heard any specifics. Again, this is so new, guys. Everything, or guys and gals, and all of you. This is so new. Schools are still trying to figure this out. Schools are still, remember, this is both sides for schools. They're figuring out for students who can't be in rotations anymore how they're going to graduate them if they don't fulfill their requirements. So they're scrambling, trying to figure all of this out. So give them time to figure it out, and I will do my best job possible getting all the information out as it comes.
Not only that, but on the med school side of things as well. I mean, yeah, they're worried about the next round of students coming in, but their overwhelming worry right now is what's going on with the students that are in medical school. So a lot of medical students are now taking exams that are or taking like classes and that sort of stuff, you know, through the internet, the way pretty much everyone is. And like, how do you do that with anatomy and physiology or neuroanatomy? And you're supposed to be in the lab doing dissections. And so there's a lot of schools, medical schools, that are trying to deal with like what's going on right now, right? They're dealing with the emergency right in front of them, let alone kind of like what they're going to have to deal with in 6 months. And I think that that's pretty common for everybody right now. Everyone's trying to figure out like, oh, what's going on now? What's going on next week? And then, yeah, putting out the big fires first. Exactly, Ashley. Absolutely. So I have some other students asking about like how long is the new course and about financing. We have financing on like all of our other courses. I believe that you do have the option to finance this one as well. I'm fairly certain of that. And then as Carolina just said, there is like 6-month access, a 12-month, an 18-month. But remember that this is like adaptable to your schedule. So you can kind of like build, like if you're taking your exam in May and you're starting now, you can kind of like set that up. Yeah. And so Phoebe says financing through Afterpay. So Carolina says, yeah, you can finance using the website and kind of like monthly payments and things like that. So yeah, Alexandra, this is a good question. So the app side of things, like this is going to be accessible on your phone. And so you are going to be able to kind of like go through this.
Yeah. A question here for me, a sophomore, it keeps moving, a sophomore,
MS2 cadet.
As a veteran, do you have any recommendations for me, especially if it relates to Uniformed Services University? Nothing specific, nothing different than anything else. Obviously, if you're a vet and you want to go back and serve as a physician in the military, then Uniformed Services University is obviously a good choice to get paid to go to medical school. I do have an episode with the former, now I believe, Dean of Admissions there on my podcast. You can look for it on the pre-med years.
Yeah, I had a couple of friends in I had a couple of friends in med school myself that were in the military. It is a good way to get things paid for. Also, so it's doing an MD PhD, but then it just takes forever. So.
Any other questions rolling in? Let's see. What makes me competitive with uniform military if I've never been involved? So you don't have to be. So the question is, how am I competitive for the military medical school if you've never been in the military? The far majority of students who go to the military medical school have never been involved with the military, but they will, as part of their kind of secondary process, they will really make sure that you are up for being a military officer first and a physician second. So that's a big part of their screening process. So nothing outstanding that you need to stand out kind of wise, other than just knowing what being a military member is all about.
Okay. Any other big ones? I know Phoebe is in there as well. Oh, Abdul, you asked about MD, PhD. So why do schools say they will interview all candidates even though they have GPA cutoffs? I don't know have schools said that they will interview all candidates? I feel like none of the MD, PhD schools I applied to said that. And I applied to a lot. But that was also back in 19-dickety-2, which is once again not in the 19s.
Like somebody's comment was like, "Dickety-2 sounds like a much better year than 2020."
Yeah, that might be an improvement there. Back when people could, go outside, it was a good time. So there are some interesting stuff going on with MD, PhD specifically. I do want to mention also that if you guys have questions outside of this, we do public webinars. There's also kind of like the other stuff going through there, like the podcast and all of Dr. Gray's stuff. I always want to call you just Ryan. And so we're actually doing a webinar this Sunday kind of talking about COVID and viruses, and it's going to be like a public webinar. which is a little bit different. So Susanna says, can I apply to MD and then later apply to MD PhD or MD MPH? Yes. As a matter of fact, a lot of times that's easier. If you go MD PhD, then very often you have your whole thing paid for, like all the years. But if you apply MD, like at least in the place that I went, if you said that you want to do a PhD, they'll let you in. And like, so maybe like the first year doesn't get paid for because you were just an MD student at that point, but then later on. So in a way it's cheaper for the med schools to allow that. But if you're like really dedicated to the MD PhD life, first off, kudos, because you're in my realm there. But yeah, you also said something about MD MPH. One of my best friends is an MD PhD in public health. So kind of like a weird combo between MD MPH and MD PhD. Now I just feel
A
like
question that came up, will the AAMC release more dates? They just announced that they released a few more dates. The big challenge is that with Pearson, they don't just do the MCAT. So they are trying to reschedule with all of the other companies that they offer tests for. And so just stay tuned for that. I would love to see. I sent a tweet a while ago, like 2 weeks ago, saying, hey, like, Prometric and Pearson, you guys need to get along and get these MCAT dates all set up and just offer them everywhere. And just kind of big picture, I wonder if the AAMC will try to develop an in-home test for anything like this in the future. Maybe it's not the standard, but they can switch to it if need be. So that'd be kind of cool. One quick little plug. If you are listening to this, if you are getting updates, seeing updates from specific schools or anywhere else, just shoot me an email, ryan@medicalschoolhq.net, and let me know so that I can go through that information and disperse it and get all that information out to students. I'd appreciate that a bunch.
So Abdo asked a question, how much of an improvement should I see with this new course in scoring? Honestly, our old course was, I think, a 10.4 increase in points, like average. I expect the new course, like it should be better. We've put in so much work. And I honestly think it's a great course. I'm really excited about it. I mean, I was excited about the old one when we made it, but like it's always pushing progress. I'm really excited about the analytics, especially.
Do I recommend delaying a May MCAT? It's hard, right? Again, if I put on my doctor hat, my public health hat, I think we should be shut down through at least mid-May. Again, the data will tell us what's going on and kind of where we're at. I think if you're late May, you're probably safe. But what I've been telling students, and Phil, maybe you're telling students something a little bit different, so you can chime in as well, is if you're the type of student who knows that if you have a late May or a mid-May date and your studying is suffering because all you're worried about is, are they going to cancel? Are they going to cancel? Then you should probably just move the date to begin with, because your prep is going to suffer because of your anxiety over whether or not the test is going to happen. Right. And everyone's going through this. And so it's not just you fearing the cancellation of this, but if you know that that's you, like if you're sitting there going, I really can't study, I don't know if I should reschedule, I don't know if they're going to cancel, I don't know what's going on, then just reschedule, just reschedule. And at the end of the day, there's no harm in delaying until next year either.
Yeah, like I had some students before that were saying like, maybe like I kind of want to sign up for an exam, but like I don't know like if they're going to cancel it, so I'm not going to sign up. I do think it's a good idea to sign up for an exam. That, you know, worst case scenario, you like being a physician, a lot of that is keeping track of the paper trail. Like if you gave somebody a medication but you didn't write it down, then you did not give that patient medication, and that creates big problems. And so like, I think you want to be able to show schools like, you know, that you were trying to take the MCAT. So I think it's a good idea to kind of like schedule. I know the AAMC has waived all their like rescheduling fees because, you know, it's chaos out there. So I do think it is important to register at some point. It's a little bit easier now. I was telling students that like, oh, if you have to reschedule, most of the dates were taken. And so I had some students that like, I have the April 24th exam. If I try to take it in May, then I have to travel like 800 miles. And I'm like, okay, I don't know if I would recommend rescheduling in that case. But now they do have more test dates open. And so it should be a little bit easier for students to kind of find some room.
Yeah.
To echo what you were saying about, Pearson is doing more than one exam. I imagine that the MCAT is the hardest one for them to try to find time in. If they have like an accounting exam in the evening or in like the afternoon, they can try to squeeze in a different exam in the morning. And because the MCAT is so huge, it's kind of like the MCAT students commandeer the whole building for that day. And so like trying to understand how they're going to be able to reschedule and put that together. They are making progress. And so they're showing that, but do kind of like recognize it's a little bit of chaos for everyone at this point.
There's no rescheduling fees, not right now.
No,
Depending on when your date was and when you booked it.
Yeah, up through May. So if you're like through May, so if your exam is sometime in like if April or May or was in March, then you're able to reschedule that to different dates.
Yep. One student asked, would I or would I not discourage doing MD PhD at age 31, 32? I am a huge fan of doing what you want to do. If you want to be an MD PhD, it doesn't matter how old you are. Go for it.
Make sure you're doing it because you like the research.
Yep.
Don't do it because you get med school paid for, and like that sounds great, but I mean it's also like my friends that are MD PhD are still in residency, and all of my other friends that I like started med school with have been like practicing for like years, and they're all super rich, and just kind of in comparison. And so like the added time kind of like doesn't make sense in terms of finances. So definitely don't do it for a financial reason. Do it because you like what's actually going on with the PhD side of things.
Go Lexi. 31, going to be a neurosurgeon. Latest date for the exam for the 2021 cycle. So 2021 cycle, I'm assuming you mean apply 2020, get in 2021. Again, the timeline is so messed up right now, potentially, that I would probably be fine with a July or August date this year, when normally I tell students to avoid it. At the end of the day, you need to take the test when you're ready. So don't rush it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Dan, we absolutely have a strategy for cars. Cars is all strategy, because there's no content. It's the one section of the test where you don't need to know anything. If there's a passage about the Russian oligarchy, like you don't need to know about the Russian oligarchy.
You need to know how to read, Phil.
Yeah, I guess you do need to know you need to know your letters. So assuming that's good. Tatiana, yeah, if we do the Russian oligarchy passage, you might do well, or you might do worse because you have outside knowledge. A lot of times having a lot of knowledge makes it actually like worse, which is why you have to be careful if there's a passage about Beyonce or memes or viral videos or evolution, because you've probably heard of those things. Okay.
Are we calling it?
Yeah, I think we might be. It's been a pleasure, everyone. It's always good to kind of like do like a different sort of setup. And I've been chomping at the bit to talk about this forever, because of all the like data stuff we were like looking at, like 6 months ago. I'm like, oh, this is so cool. I can't talk to anybody about it.
Don't forget, go follow me on social media for the giveaway that we're gonna do.
Yeah, absolutely. And if any of you guys get in the early adopter program, I'll see you in the Facebook group and in our special webinars we do.
At Medical School HQ on Instagram.
There we go. That's the important thing, right? Instagram handle.
Yes, Medical School HQ. Do it.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you all. It's been a blast.